Christy and Ken Shipwood and the rest of the committee made happen in the previous month. I'm really excited to introduce this officially as our next shared resource, the Gallup Access Platform, being in this. I love being able to say that the Shared Resource Program collectively saves the network more than $1 million every year. This year, for the first time, we can say that, I guess. And I'm proud to introduce the first non-media resource to that portfolio of offerings. And with that in mind, I would love to hear other ideas from this group for shared resource, other ways we can expand the value AMIN creates for its member agencies by collaborating and working together and pooling our intellectual and financial resources. In addition to the Q12 engagement survey that I think we all understand comes with this, that there's a ton of manager level reporting, a ton of benchmarking we'll be able to do, and Holly talked this morning about the action planning, and I'm really excited about that. The more I learn about it, the more excited I am about that. Christy is recording this for those who aren't able to attend. I say you probably have about half the network's agencies represented here. Is that fair, Christy?
Yes.
And so, for those who aren't attending because of the environment we're in, they'll be able to hear Steve's presentation via the recording. Christy and I are going to talk right after this probably about getting some webinars scheduled around next steps, because we do have an aggressive timeline. So one way or another, and you'll notice on my PI that my driver item, whatever that is almost off the charts on the left. So one thing I'm going to do is get results out for this before the end of the year, one way or another, right? And so most of you have shared employee lists. You've provided that in a spreadsheet. Based on our conversation today, we might ask for some tweaks to that, or we might not. I'm going to consolidate that and we'll get it loaded. That'll put us in a position to launch the survey the Monday after Thanksgiving. So we'll ask employees to start taking the survey November 29th through December 10th. It's important to have some communication before that. Tara Wiley from Signal Theory is not able to be here today, but has volunteered to take charge of that communication, both with the folks in this room around logistics and model communication to your teams, to the employees taking the survey around what engagement means. And Steve will provide all sorts of templates for that as well. Our team at Gallup, Steve is here today. We've met Travis and we've met Ashley, two very talented folks who are going to help us get onboarded and make this a success. Christy is a critical part of that. Many of you have met Carly, the newest AMIN staffer. A lot of you haven't. Carly was hired primarily to help us out with our digital marketing efforts, so our website, our social, all of that sort of stuff. But her understanding of technology, I think, is going to make her a really valuable player in this project as well. So we're trying to keep her in the loop. Tara's going to play a critical role. Holly, based on your understanding of the platform, I think I'm going to be asking you to help if you're willing as well, make this a success for the network. So I'm done rambling. Steve's turn.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. Well, as Kelly said, I am Steve Bath with Gallup. I am from Lincoln, Nebraska, so I am really excited to be down here in Dallas. And in fact, when I was getting ready to come down here, it's been almost 2 years since I've traveled. And if you don't know, deodorant dries out over time. So I had to make a quick trip to CVS last night and got an opportunity to walk around the city in the cold. And I was expecting Dallas to be much warmer than it was in Lincoln, Nebraska. Yep. But it was great, and great to be here and be able to get in front of people again live and see your shining faces, as my mother, the preschool teacher, always used to say. It's just really energizing, I think, to be in person, and so I'm really excited to talk to you this afternoon. We're going to spend some time talking about engagement and why it's important, what it means, why is it important, how do we do it, how do we influence it. You may all be thinking when you saw the agenda, Gallup's going to be there. What are we going to do, some polling, or what's that going to be like? Well, polling is actually a very small fraction of what Gallup does. The majority of our business is spent on analytics, advice, and learning for organizations to develop their human capital. And that's literally from top to bottom. So we also do a significant amount of selection instruments. I know you had a predictive index in a little bit earlier. So we also have some selection instruments that we've developed over time, but predictive index, I've worked with them before. So that's always great. But that just gives you a little bit more insight about who Gallup is and really what we're going to be trying to accomplish. So to get us started, and for me to be able to get to know you guys a little better, I know you all know each other, and I got to talk to a couple people at lunch, but I'd like to just quickly go around and let people introduce themselves and tell me what agency you're with and kind of where you're from, if you don't mind. And I'll take a volunteer, or I'm really good at picking people, so if we want to start. How about just right here? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Andrew Weber. I'm the Director of Accounting for H&L Partners based in Oakland, California. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Oh, great. I'm going clear across the country.
Yeah, I would say it's about as far as I can get from my parents without leaving the country,
Thank you.
I'm Karen.
Yep.
Slingshot here. I'm also the AMIN treasurer, so I'll pay his bill.
That was the first thing she told me when I met her. So I paid you. I was like, oh, I don't handle that, but that's all good. Thank you so much, Karen.
Brandy, Slingshot, and I'm the controller, and I'm from Alabama originally.
Brandy, talk to me.
I'm Kelly. I think everybody knows me. I'm from Clarinda, Iowa originally.
Wow, yeah, very close. Yeah.
I'm Eleanor. I work at H&L Partners, and we're based in Oakland, California.
Nice.
And I was born in San Francisco, but my father was in the Navy, so I lived in Florida and South Carolina.
Oh, wow, you've been all over the country then. Great.
I'm Vaughn, also from H&L Partners, as you know, based in Oakland, California.
Yeah.
Originally, I'm from Vietnam, actually, so yeah, but I grew up in the Bay Area, starting when I was 5.
Yeah, great. Gallup has offices all over the globe. Vietnam is not one of them. That might be a new location. Who knows? So, yeah.
Jim Branicar with Signal Theory in Kansas City. I'm originally from Stanton, Nebraska, and I am a fellow at Impress, Nebraska.
You bet. And Jim knows this, and everybody always asks me when I travel, they say, oh, are you a Husker fan? I said, well, if you aren't, they take your diploma away. So it's kind of yeah, you gotta be. Yeah.
I'm John Roberts. I'm the CFO at Stone Board in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm really from North Carolina, live in a bunch of different places.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
I'm Chelsea Melke, I'm the Finance Director at Signal Theory, and originally from Kansas, I live in DC.
Thanks, Chelsea.
I'm Tony Robinson. I'm the CFO at Signal Theory, Kansas City. Grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Awesome. Tony.
I'm Matt Rivas. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Pt1 in Detroit. Born and raised in Michigan, and here's my obligatory blue.
Yeah, you got it. You can throw it out there. You got it. Exactly. And props, for sure.
So my wife is a Michigan State fan, so she can tell me to kind of
The house divided. I love it. Good. Yep. I love it.
Caroline Adriano with True Media, True Independent Holdings, Coady, Radar, all different companies, all into one. And our corporate office in Missouri, that's where I live most of my life.
Okay. Fantastic.
I'm Tony Drake with Adult Agency. I'm in Nashville. We have our biggest office is in Jacksonville. I was born in Aiken, South Carolina, but I grew up in Ohio.
Awesome.
Go Bucks.
Yep. Well, Nashville's on my bucket list. I've had several friends
Oh,
that
it's
you
great.
gotta go to Nashville. It's unbelievable. So yeah.
Fun town.
Awesome.
I'm Laura with Joe Anderson in Louisville, Kentucky. I grew up in northern Michigan.
Awesome.
I'm Holly, HR for Planet in Baltimore, Maryland. I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Awesome.
Lori Olson, I work at Peter Mayer in New Orleans. That's where I'm from.
Great. Yeah. The Big Easy. Awesome. Yeah.
I'm Brittany Pisano. I'm a Joe Anderson. I'm the controller in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm born and raised there.
Yeah. Nice. Louisville.
Louisville.
Yeah.
I'm Katie Plank. I'm from Crowley Web in Buffalo, but I'm originally from Pennsylvania as well.
Awesome. Katie and I talked a little bit about the snow belt in New York at lunch, and so yeah. She says they haven't gotten any yet, but it's coming.
Melissa from Rooster, Director
because a lot of people want to return things. Isn't that amazing?
It was sick. Well, I got away from my family for a little bit. Now I'm back with my parents.
Okay. Yeah, I love it.
I'm Leah Taylor, and I'm from Reister, in Phoenix, but I grew up in Santa Barbara, California.
So,
Christy.
yes.
Minneapolis, the cold belt.
Great.
Yeah, I'll say that as both.
And the funniest thing about Christy is she's the one running around turning up all the thermostats. And I'm like, you're from Minnesota. This cold should be nothing to you. But anyway. Well, thank you all for introducing yourself. And hopefully we'll get a little bit of time. I'm going to be with you for the rest of the day today. And I want this to be a really interactive session. You know, this is your opportunity to ask me questions and to really dig deep into how this is going to affect your individual agencies and how best to roll this out, you know, to your individual agencies. You as HR directors and HR personnel, you know your agencies way better than I do. And I'm here basically to kind of help you form and shape and direct based on Gallup science. And what makes the most sense for you may not make the most sense for another agency within the organization. Kelly and Christy and I have spent a lot of time kind of talking about a plan to roll out, and they're going to be giving you kind of those specific dates, which she already has, and I'll have to adjust a slide I have in here with the date of the survey. I just said mid-November, but so you've got specific dates for that and be able to follow that. And that's what we're here for, is to support you in all of that. Not only through the survey process, making sure, you know, we get good data, you know, as you guys know from all of your market analysis and that kind of thing that you do, you know, garbage in, garbage out. And so we want to make sure we're getting everybody lined up correctly and really truly getting the opinions of everybody in your organization. And really that's what it's all about. It's not a touchy-feely, hold hands, sing, you know, kumbaya and love our company. It's really all about performance, and it's all about meeting those needs of our employees and how do we best serve those employees so that they can then perform at the highest level. And everything Gallup does is all linked back to performance. If any of you here have taken the Clifton Strengths Assessment, anybody got their Strengths Finders report? Kelly's got his, yeah, got one here. So, yep, some. So, but that's one of those things when you first read, you're like, oh wow, this is great. This really describes me. You know, it's really fun, great to talk about. You get together with your spouse or somebody within your organization. You kind of share your reports and everything. But what that's really all about is what are your strengths, who you're hardwired to be, and then how do you apply that for performance? You know, whether it be in your personal life or whether it be in your professional life. Engagement is no different. You know, how do we meet those needs of the people within our organization so then they can in turn stick around longer. They can be more productive. They can be more profitable for our organization. They can recruit other people to our organization. We all know the Great Resignation that's going on, you know, right now. You can't pick up an article or read anything, you know, without some kind of mention of everybody is going everywhere, and there is a labor shortage everywhere, and you know, we can't find people. We can't find the right kind of talent. And I'm here to tell you, and Gallup, through many, many, many years of our science, is how we keep top talent and how we develop top talent is through engagement. And it all starts with meeting those needs of employees. So, any questions up to this point, or anything that you're dying to know about before we get going when you read the agenda? You can always put it. Great. And as we go along, like I said, feel free to stop me. My mother always told me, you love to hear yourself talk, don't you? And unfortunately, I do sometimes. So, but we'll keep it to a minimum. So, the enthusiasm fuels growth. And really what that is when we are engaged in our work, we are more involved, we are more passionate about our organization, and we're also more creative. You guys all work with people that are very creative, you know, and that those, how do we tap into that? And you kind of know people that are like, I just burn out. Oh my gosh, I can't come up with a new idea. This is crazy. Well, when people are engaged in their work, those ideas really start to flow, and they're thinking about them all the time when they're driving home in traffic, you know, when they're sitting at the dinner table, you know, with their family, when they're at the football game watching their kids. You know, they're constantly in the background kind of thinking about, how do I make things better? Or how do I do things better? Or how do we do that when they are engaged? Whereas when people aren't engaged in their work, they show up on time, they leave on time, they do exactly what's expected of them at work. No more, no less. They're not bad people, but you're just not going to get that extra effort from that extra discretionary effort, and that's what we're looking for from our engaged employees. So how do we create an engaging workplace? We're going to talk about how understanding engagement, how do we measure engagement, and also what do we do around creating engagement? You know, what are those things that we can be to be intentional about it? And so we'll talk about those. So the first thing we want to do is really understanding engagement. What is it? You know, how do we come up with it? How does it measure? How do we go about the definition so that we can really explain what that means? So it isn't just a buzzword. You know, way back in the 1980s when Gallup developed the word engagement, you do hear it quite a bit now. But I will say to you, this is exactly when we got started with engagement. Sorry, Christy, I learned to walk around. So, but that's what Gallup started. Our senior scientist, said, engagement is where it's at. And we had been doing a lot of satisfaction surveys and working on a lot of satisfaction. When we dug deeper into that, we really found that we were actually doing more harm with our 150 question satisfaction surveys than if we had done nothing at all. And the research showed that people felt worse about their organization if they got through that length of a survey than before they took it. And so that's what started us down this road of what are those elements, and we came up with the 12 questions that we've got today. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So of course it fuels business results, and that's what we're all here to do, to grow our organizations so we can meet our obligations to our clients and expand what we do, and also meet our obligations to our employees. We don't tend to think a lot about that, but when we fuel growth and we're profitable and productive, you know what? Everybody wins, and that's really what it's all about. So, the culture that we do, we create matters. When we look at our most highly engaged organizations versus our most lowly engaged organizations, and this is from our Gallup database, they are 17% higher productivity, 21% greater profitability when we compare those two. The other thing is we are able to reduce absenteeism, safety instances. We have 59% less turnover, and that's in low turnover organizations. And we're even able in high turnover organizations, hospitality, that you guys know, and some of those retail organizations that we work with. We're also able to reduce that by 49%. So doesn't everybody's like, oh, part-timers, we don't know how to reach them. We just hope they show up on time. That's really it. And they work while they're here. That's really all we want them to do. Well, no, we have that ability, through the things that Gallup does and the things that we talk about, and being able to get those people engaged so that whether they are full-time or part-time, we're going to get that level of engagement that translates into that productivity. The biggest thing is 10% higher customer metrics. I always think about this when I go out shopping, at the local Target or, the local Cabela's that is a great Nebraska mainstay, if you know that. And I'm talking to somebody and have a question, and you just want to stop them and say, "You seem like you're just miserable here," And the thing about it is I don't want to come back and talk to that guy. Shields is a phenomenal organization. They're there in the Midwest. They were started in North Dakota, I believe, and they got it going on. Everybody, the head of those departments, is just phenomenal to talk to. And conversely, you can't get a spot in their parking place on a weekend. And most of the time during the week, you're going to be parking clear in the back. So that tells you what engaged employees really get you, and why customers are so drawn to that organization. And we all have been to them, and we've all seen them, and we've all been to the opposite of those people that you just want to say, please go do something that you love, because this ain't it. You're miserable, you're making me miserable. And I want to be happy. That's why I came in here. So that's another thing to think about. So it's not just you and your organization, but it's also the customer interactions that are there. The other thing is that it affects our personal life. Have you ever heard anybody say, this job is killing me? Well, literally, Gallup's research shows that those people have lower levels, engaged people have lower levels of stress, lower levels of anxiety and depression. They also have lower levels of bad cholesterol. We've proven that. through our research that we've done. So we all know that, you know, if you go to work and you have a bad day at work, where do you take it? Home with you, most of the time. You know, and everybody thinks, oh, no, I leave it at work. You know, I'm totally different, you know, at home than I am at work. We know that isn't true. You know,
Home is work now.
yeah, sorry, Kelly.
Home is work now.
Home is work now. That is exactly right. With our remote working now, you know, we're talking to a ton of organizations that are like, boy, you know, it's amazing. You would think when we went remote working that burnout would have kind of gone away. You know, no commute, you know, none of those things, staying late, you know, at the office. That is one of the most significant, or I should say one of the most prevalent topics that we're helping organizations with right now. With 100% remote workforces is burnout. And so that's what we have to be thinking about. How do we address that? How do we address people that are working remotely? How do we stay connected, you know, to our teams that are working remotely? Have you all come back into your offices yet, or are you still got some shaking nose, some yeses? Okay, a little bit of everything, some hybrid, you know. So got a lot of yeses there. Yeah, and that's going to be the future of the workplace. And Gallup is doing a tremendous amount of research around that. And we're developing a lot of initiatives, a lot of learning around that to help organizations be just as effective, whether you're remote or whether you're in the office too. So when we're engaged, we're involved, enthusiastic, and committed to our work. I think that's pretty clear. We've talked about it a lot. Engaged employees and teams have more energy to take on challenges. You know, a lot of them can't wait to get back to work. They may come home exhausted, but they're like, well, I just can't wait to get back and do that again. You know, I talk a lot about with managers. I said, do you ever have something that you're doing, you just lose track of time? And they'll say, you know what, I got this car in the garage. And I go, I get under the hood of that car, and pretty soon I've been there for 4 hours. You know, and I says, and you know, how do you feel about that? And they're just like, man, I can't wait to do it again. You know, well, what if we were able to make your team members feel that way? That they literally just lose track of time and what they're doing. You know, and they're just so energetic about it, you know, and we can translate that to them. They go, man, that'd be awesome. And so let's talk about how we can do that. And Gallup is here to help you do that with your organizations. So the other thing is they positively affect those around them. You know, we all know that actively disengaged person, at Gallup we like to call them Eeyores. You know, oh, that'll never work. You know, we've tried that before. They got this dark cloud over their head, or cave dwellers constantly against virtually everything, you know. And what do? They recruit, you know. They're the ones like, oh, let me tell you something, come here. Let me tell you, you know, we just had this, I'm telling you, this ain't gonna work. You know, we did that way back, you know, 3 years ago. Here's what happened, you know, you need to get on the money side. We need to bring this up, you know, kind of thing. And that's what ends up happening, you know. And we're not, also the other thing is, we're not going to spend our time on our actively disengaged people. We spend all of our time, we're going to flip that paradigm. We're going to spend all of our time on our most highest productive, highest engaged people. And we're going to manage those people that are actively disengaged. And one day, hopefully, you will walk into your office and there will be a letter on your desk. And when you open it, it will say, I regret to inform you that I am taking employment somewhere else. And that's the whole goal of these actively disengaged persons. They want all the grease, they want all the attention, and our top performers are sitting around going, well, how come nobody's talking to me? You know, why is nobody spending any time with me? You know, how come I'm not getting one-on-one conversations? You know, why am I not getting, you know, grievances met or whatever it might be? You know, making changes around here about that. So we're gonna show you how to completely flip that and spend all of your time on your top performers and showing your managers how to spend all their time on those top performers and then manage those actively disengaged people. I equate it to, you offer them the brass ring and it's their obligation to take it or not. You open the door for them as a manager, you give them, you know, create that engaged environment, and it's their obligation then to either walk through that door or decide not to. I was talking to one of my large healthcare clients that I work with, and you know, it was funny. My mother-in-law was a nurse, and she's older, but at that time, everybody smoked. Everybody in the hospital smoked. teachers smoke, or doctors smoked, patients smoked in their rooms, when she was a nurse. In fact, when she went to nursing school, she said, if you didn't smoke, they taught you how to smoke, And so now what has happened over time is there is no smoking anywhere. They don't even, you can't, if you're gonna smoke, you're gonna do it across the street, through incentives, education, some rules, those over time, we have slowly become an environment that, smoking is just not that acceptable anywhere, really. And that's what engagement is really all about. We're gonna educate, cajole, offer, and they're gonna choose to quit smoking or to smoke across the street, And that's what ends up happening. And so that's kind of that easy way to kind of equate it and think about it. That's what we're gonna do. So there is a difference between engagement and satisfaction. So as I talked about before, way back when, Gallup was doing a ton of satisfaction surveys. And our senior scientists really started looking into that and diving into that science and really found out that it doesn't work. And really what the difference is satisfaction is more about that. I get great pay and benefits. I'm really satisfied. I get a parking place right out front. I'm really satisfied. I get 4 weeks of vacation. I'm really satisfied. None of which equates to bottom line metrics performance. And that's really what that difference is. I was working with an organization one time, and a guy raised up his hand, he goes, yeah, it's kind of the difference between if you pull into your parking spot or you back into your parking spot. So if you back into your parking spot, you're already thinking about, I'm gonna get out of here so fast, I don't even have to turn around, And so that's also that level. But what we really know about engaged employees, they work with more passion, They recruit people, to your organization. They perform at those high levels. They have just a bigger motor, than anybody else, out there. And they really move your organization forward. And so that's what we want to develop in your own individual agencies. Again, our satisfied employees, they show up on time, they leave on time, they do exactly what's expected of them at work, and that's what you're going to get. So, any questions about that or the difference? So again, we act differently when we're engaged. We're psychologically committed. We know the scope of the jobs and looks new and better ways to achieve outcomes. Always thinking about how can we do this differently and better. I have a large manufacturing client, and before, employees never felt that they could make any adjustments in their workstation at all. It was, this is what I have to do, and they would either say, I can do this, or they would say, I can't do this, I'm going somewhere else, kind of thing. And then when we empowered them to say, hey, we want your opinions on, I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right, not only means the stuff, but also means where is it, and how do I use it, and that kind of thing. And when they did that, people started to kind of organize their work areas so that they were way more efficient for them and what they do, It's amazing, one of the guys when I was touring it, he had one hand missing, kind of thing. And he's running a very high-tech CNC machine, so I mean, it's not a minimal job. It's just not moving things, from one place to the other. But so everything was all dominant, or his dominant hand was his right hand, but his left, everything was set up so that you grabbed it here and then moved it and then put it in the machine with this other hand. And he was just like, man, this just doesn't work for me, kind of thing. And we can't do it. It's like, well, that's just the way the area's set up. When, we said to him, his direct manager says, show me how you would change this, if this would work better for you. And he started kind of going through it. And, they spent the weekend, reorganizing that. And man, he's phenomenal. He's even more productive now, than he was before. He was great, before, but now, he's unbelievable. So giving people that opportunity by listening to them, hearing their input, and really understanding what are those basic needs, we're able to achieve those kinds of results. So how are we going to measure engagement? I'm sure some of you have seen the Q12 survey, so been out there. Those are those 12 elements that we came up to. We asked literally thousands and thousands of questions to hundreds of thousands of people to really come up with what are those 12 things that people need, that people have to have met to be able to become engaged at work. And when we did that, our senior scientists spent tons of time, it's backed by rigorous science, and when we did that, we came up with the Q12 questions. So then we knew what those, and when you read through these, you'll kind of know what their underlying theme is. It's no secret, really, what we're trying to identify. But the biggest thing is as you read through these, there's some really strong language in there. So when we look here, oh, this is because it's a screen, my pointer won't show on the screen, which is fine. No, it's kind of one of those things. Has anybody ever had that happen to them with a pointer? Yeah, because it's a TV screen, not a screen. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Sorry for you folks watching this recording, but here, if you look at some of the strong language in here, in the last 7 days, I've received recognition or praise for doing good work. The underlying theme there is recognition, of course. But when we asked it, every way that you can ask it, I receive recognition, I get recognition, I am recognition. It did not sort high-performing workers from low-performing workers. It did not separate those. And so some of these questions here are most famous one, Q10. I have a best friend at work. And if some of you have ever seen Dilbert, that question actually ended up in their cartoon at one time. And but that's why we add that strong language. We ask that question, I have a friend, I have an acquaintance, but that's the only way that it's sorted.
On that one, that's been very controversial in our office since we've been doing this. But on that one, have you noticed that with everybody working from home and some people getting hired and never having gone into the office, that the scores for that question have just kind of gone lower because of what's happening?
So this question emits the #1 most negative response of all of these questions. If you can believe that, people really bristle when you ask them this question. And when we have an entire book written about this one question. It's called Vital Friends. And the science behind it, why it's important, why having friends at work is so important. But I never thought that people would get upset about that. But some people do. They say, my best friend lived across the street from me in 4th grade. You know what? They're my best friend today. They don't work here. Or my best friend is my spouse. They don't work here. Kind of thing. So that's a 1 for me. To answer your question, Jim, we have basically seen consistency throughout the pandemic for that. Now, with remote workplaces, we may see that dip a little bit because people aren't as interactive in the workplace. To this point, we have not seen any change. It's still, the science on it is still exact same. That's the other thing. We do a meta-analysis every 5 years on all of these questions to make sure they're still doing what they're designed to do, okay? And so we have CEOs, leaders of huge corporations that are like, can you change that question? Can you make it different? Can you change the wording? Take it out, and our senior scientists say, nope. And they'll be like, when it stops doing what it's designed to do, we'll change it. And that's where it is. But so did that help you?
Yeah, I just figured that with some employees who've been working at these companies for the last 8 months, all remote, they haven't even seen some of these other. That was the ones I was wondering if you'll see that moving forward.
Yeah, we have, that's a great question. We've implemented some things on my team, being 100% remote, to try and kind of build in some of that camaraderie. And we do a Thursday night happy hour at 4:30, which we all get our favorite bottle of whatever, or cocktail of whatever. And my manager will have a theme or have a question or something like that. We'll kind of go around and just talk and do that or celebrate something, that happened that week. They're not long, it takes me about a half an hour to drink about 2 fingers of scotch, so that's about right. But anyway, those are some of those things that teams have developed and teams have really started to do to really help keep that camaraderie or keep people connected to each other and talking to each other. I know I'm texting a lot more with people on my team than I did before. I'm also IMing a lot through Microsoft Teams with people, sending a lot of memes. I'm sure you guys are too, funny things that you see. In fact, last night late, I was kind of going through and a notification popped up. My manager's in Mexico right now getting married. Okay? And it's a funny, have you seen the people that do the Christmas jammies song? Is it Holder? Something? Yeah. They've got a song, it's wedding song, the honest wedding songs or something. I just saw it. It is hilarious. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have to send that to her, you know, if wedding songs were honest. And so anyway, sorry. So that's a way we connect. Anyway, so I digress. That's me wanting to listen to myself talk. So here's what I'm talking about with that sorting effect. When we ask that question, you can see, I have a good friend at work. And it just didn't. High-performing work groups and low-performing work groups kind of rated it kind of all over the board. And then when we changed that language to say, I have a best friend at work, our low-performing work groups gave that a low rating, and our high-performing work groups gave that a higher rating. And that's the case with every one of those 12 questions that are up there. So, okay. Any questions about this? So the other thing is that the questions are in an order for a reason. And the best way to think about it is a pyramid or a mountain. You know, we're going to climb a mountain, and if you were going to go out and, you know, climb, you know, Mount Everest, you know, you'd have to start at the bottom, you know, at base camp, and really get yourself acclimated, be able to get all your equipment together, be able to make your plan on how it is that you're going to be able to do your climb and make your plan. And then you're going to start your climb, and we're going to work our way up the mountain. Well, if you were to be helicoptered halfway up, you'd probably get altitude sickness and you'd fail, you know, or, you know, something may happen. You wouldn't be acclimated to the temperature or whatever it might be. And so that's why we say we want to start down here at these basic needs, those questions 1 through 6, and that individual contribution. The great thing about the Gallup Access platform is it's going to point you in that direction. When it gives recommendations, it's going to put more emphasis on these questions 1 through 6, and so that you don't have to be saying, okay, now wait a minute, Steve said something about, you know, climbing a mountain, you got to start at the bottom, you know, the platform will do that for you. And so you may get a question like, well, gosh, you know what, Steve, our Q10 or Q9 was really, really low. Why isn't that one of the ones that we should be, that recommended we should be working on? And the reason is because it's not in here. So that's where we want to start. And once we get these needs met, the way to think about it, or the way I think about it a lot is, you know, you start off with, I know what's expected of me at work, and I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. You know what, if you don't do that, you know, for people, and you jump right in with, this last year I've had opportunities at work to learn and grow, and you had all the skills and knowledge and training and send them off to trade shows and everything, they're going to take all of that skill and knowledge that you give them, you know, up here, and they're going to go to your competitor. And at your competitor, they'll know what they're supposed to do. You know, they'll have the materials and equipment they need to do their work right at your competitor. And so that's what I say, when we spend too much time up here, when we don't have our good base in questions 1 through 6, it creates that instability in our pyramid, and it can fall over. So, but again, the platform is going to point you in that direction. So here's just a little more in-depth about each one of the areas. So when we think about those basic needs, in that first question, it's really saying focus me. You know, in question 2, it's really saying free me from unnecessary stress. You know, so I don't have to worry about, you know, getting things under. Is my computer going to open, or, you know, do I have VPN, you know, working from home? Am I going to have the right security, you know, to be able to do that? So the second area of the pyramid is really talking about, you know, that know me. Help me see my value. When we talk about recognition of areas, my supervisor or someone at work seems to care about me as a person. You know, pretty simple. You know, really wants to care about me. And then there's someone at work who encourages my development. Help me grow. That's what people are really saying. We know through some of our research right now that we just completed on our millennials, also our women in the workplace, we're seeing a big shift in those needs of employees now. I'm the last year of the baby boomers. You know, when I got my first job, I came home, I was having dinner with my parents, and as one to do, you know, you're like, gosh, don't complain about your job, you know, a little bit. And my dad looked at me and he goes, you know, they pay you for that. And his attitude was, shut up, you get a paycheck. You know, well, are you kidding me? Come on. Well, people don't want just a paycheck. You know what? They want a mission and a purpose. They want to know, how do I fit in this organization? How is what I am doing within this organization affect the entire organization? What's my impact here? You know, they want a coach. they don't want a boss. You know, we're seeing that significant shift, and we can talk about that as you guys start to develop your action plans with people, and as we roll things out. So we're meeting those needs. But
Are
yeah.
you assuming that everybody wants that?
Yeah. So that was the first question when we saw the research was, is it just millennials or Gen Xers or Gen Zers? And then our senior scientists, they actually went back and they started looking at our State of the American Workplace research and our Women in the Workplace research. These are things that we do kind of on a regular basis, and they were charting this gradual shift for everybody, not just a specific demographic. We've all been guilty of those millennials. Oh my God. They get a couple paychecks under their belt and they're going to backpack across Europe, and it's like, I just don't get it. I don't understand them, kind of thing. And that's what kind of motivated us to kind of start in with some of that research. And so then when we went back and really looked, we were seeing that shift really across the board starting to happen, those needs of employees. And it's kind of amazing sometimes, when you look at it, I talked to one of our senior scientists about it, I said, what do you think kind of promoted the shift? And he said, I think it's just opportunity. He says before, no one had the opportunity, to work from home. Nobody had the opportunity to have flexible, work hours. Nobody had, moms were home to take care of, stuff, and he said, and men worked, kind of thing. Well, now both parents work, we're getting kids into all this stuff, and we're digitally connected like never before, and so his theory on this was, he also kind of swerved into some things. We're raising our children a little differently, than we did previously. It used to be kids had a paper route. Nobody has a paper route anymore. The guy that delivers my paper, I think he's 70, or north of that. But we don't let kids just go play. Head to the park and do their games and work things out amongst themselves and communicate. And that proverbial kid says, "I'm taking my ball and going home." If we don't do it my way, now there's a parent right there, or a teacher, that steps in and does the refereeing and sets out the rules and says, here's what you're going to do. And so they also swerved in a little bit of that, but and those are all theories, so but something to think about. So the other ones that we've got up there, the mission purpose of my company, makes me feel my job is important, help me see my importance within this organization. My associates or fellow employees are committed to quality work, help me feel proud about my organization. Nothing worse than going to work where nobody else cares but you, and, when you go out with your friends, that's what you say. Nobody else cares about this but me, kind of thing. Last one here, or not last one, but in here is, I have a best friend at work, help me build mutual trust. We help a lot of organizations with this question. Some organizations are like, we're just going to ignore it. And I'm like, well, let's talk about that. If that's a problem, if having a best friend at work, or people feel they don't have the ability to have best friends, that's a problem. We need to talk about that. A lot of people try to redefine it. I don't recommend this, but a lot of people do. Does someone have your back? Are there people here that I can trust? Are there people here that I can rely on? Some people do that. And like I said, not wrong. It's more about that understanding about why someone's marking that low rather than giving it a 5. And what does a 5 look like? What do we have to do? I had another large health organization that I worked with. One of the teams, their action plan was to work on this question. They developed a no gossip policy. Okay? Their definition of gossip was, if you are complaining to someone about something they cannot fix for you, that is gossip. Okay? And it had a huge impact. And it became kind of part of their culture, which was great, because as I made a visit, and it was, I happened to be walking by the nurse's station, and I heard one of the nurses say, I can't fix that for you. You're going to have to go talk to the person that can fix that for you. And I was like, yeah. So they were putting it into action, and that person said, oh, yeah, I get it. I'm sorry. I'll give maintenance a call, or whoever it was, or I think it was her pager or beeper or whatever it was. But anyway, but that's just one of those ways that organizations have, come up with how we're going to impact that and how it's going to impact the culture of our team. And then our last ones up here in the last 6 months, some of my work has talked to me about my progress, help me review my contributions. You know, hey, am I doing good here? You know, I have competition. If you have Clifton strength, sorry, I have competition number 5. So I'm constantly asking my manager, how am I doing? What do you think? Think I'm doing anything? Am I winning here? You know, what does this look like? You know, kind of thing. So she knows that about me. So a lot of times that's how she starts our conversations. You know, Steve, let me review what you did last week. Let me review, you know, what I think was effective for you last week and all that kind of thing. And so I'm always good. Challenged me the last year. I've had opportunities to work to learn and grow. You know, I want to get opportunities to grow. What's that look like? So how do we create, you know, engagement? So we really talked about, you know, how we're going to measure it, what it looks like, you know, what we're going to do, what are some of that subliminal text around some of the Q12 items, but really, you know, what is it we're going to do? This is not an HR initiative. So do not go back to your agencies and say to people, hey, HR's got this new thing we're going to do, AMIN's going to provide it, you know, and I'm going to roll it out to you. No. Say, hey, this is a company thing that we are going to do. This is how we are going to affect our culture that then affects our bottom line metrics of our organization. And we're all going to do it. We're all going to participate in it, whether we're the CEO, you know, or we're the VP, or whether we're a frontline contributor, or whether we're a manager. We're all going to be doing the same things. And we're going to get your opinions on the Q12 questions to be able to understand what it is that we're going to do as an organization, or what our needs are as an organization. But the biggest thing out of this is truly, this is top to bottom about what we're going to do. It is not an HR initiative. I have some organizations that I think that was the mistake they made when they rolled it out. It came from HR, and I said, we had to back up. We said, nope, we're going to have the CEO is going to send this out as a company, you know, initiative. And so I strongly recommend that you get buy-in with your senior leaders, or spend time with your senior leaders before you do the rollout communications. I know Carrie and Chrissy are going to be working on it, you know, to be able to share with the organization and not send it out from HR. So, okay. Any questions about that? So the goal is literally to measure the engagement, and that's what the report's going to tell you. It's going to point you in a direction, you know, and there are going to be tips and tricks and best practices embedded in the report that I'm going to show you when we pull up the platform, so that you can kind of see what are those resources that we have at hand on the platform to be able to use. The last thing is, engagement survey is a chance to measure the health of our organization and our culture. You know, you get that opportunity to get your opinion heard, be able to say, hey, how are we doing? You know, are we an engaged culture or not? I coach a lot of managers, you know, in the organization I work with. They get a lot of surprises in some of these reports, and they say to me, why is this? And I'm like, I go, I don't know, let's ask them. You know, let's find out. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Let's talk about that. Now, you know, experience kind of points me in a certain direction, but then what does that cause you to do? Assume. You know, we all know the famous adage about assume. It's like, oh, this is low because of this. You know, oh my God, COVID. Yeah, that's why our scores were low. It was, you know, terrible. I had organizations during COVID, their scores actually went up, and I had organizations that stayed flat. And we talked about that, and they were devastated by that. And I said, this is a win in light of what you had to do. One of those organizations actually sold their building during COVID, you know, and had to have their employees come in and clean, get everything out. Now, you as an employee, and they ask you to come to the office and take all of your belongings from the office. We are selling our building. What do you think? What goes through your mind? You know, and if you are not an engaged employee and do not have communication with your senior leaders and have not had these conversations in the right way, you know, until this decision is made, you're updating your resume, you know. And I think back, I was 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry before coming to Gallup. I think about all the managers I had, you know, throughout my career. I went through I survived 3 acquisitions during those 20 years. And the managers that when I got with them, then they just told me, I don't know, Steve, I don't know. Those are the ones I went and updated my resume. And I contacted a headhunter. And I was ready to jump, you know, at any time. And the ones that said, Steve, you can ask me anything, you know, about the acquisition. I'll tell you what I can tell you. And if I can't tell you that, I'm going to tell you I can't tell you that. And those are the ones that I said, I'm with you. I'm hanging in, you know. And that's the thing. With this great resignation, top talent can go anywhere. Top talent can get hired tomorrow. We gotta keep top talent in our organization. And if we do all of the right things, we're gonna keep our top talent. And that top talent, at Gallup we say talent runs in packs. And if you think about that with your kids, with your relatives, with other organizations that you worked with, the old adage, birds of a feather flock together, you know, kind of thing, good and bad, you know, as my mother always tell me, you know, those kids aren't your friends, you know, you ever hear that? Well, it's the same thing in business. So they will recruit people into your organization. So here's the date that I need to change. So November the 29th, thank you, Kelly, for laying that out. So let's talk about the security of people's responses. This seems to be one of the big things that does come up is the anonymity of responses. People are always going to be like, oh, they're going to track this back to me. You know what? I got that manager. He's kind of punitive. He's not going to be happy if our scores aren't very high. You know, well, I'm here to tell you, protecting the anonymity of the responses protects the integrity of the instrument. Okay? Gallup is not going to sacrifice the integrity of our instrument for anyone. In fact, we had a very large big box client that we had been working with for about 6 years. And we had basically done, we had done the analysis that every 0.2 increase in their engagement in an individual store resulted in $100,000 of profit in an individual store. New CEO comes in. He goes, we brief him on everything we're doing. We talk to him about, you know, all the stuff. He goes, great. He goes, I want to see everybody's individual responses. And we said, nope. And he said, hey, listen, I'm paying for this. I want to see everybody's individual responses. And we said, nope. And we waved goodbye to them. And they quit us. And that was the only reason. And they have now, that CEO has left. We are now talking to them again, you know, about that. But that was one of those things. And this was a multi-million-dollar account that we had. And we, you know, our Jim Clifton, our CEO, lost a lot of sleep over it. And we said, can't do it. No way. I'm not doing it. We didn't even, it didn't even come down to a negotiation. Well, we'll share it with just you in a private room and you can look. No, we didn't do that because it didn't. So here, and I've also got, if you need this for anyone within your organization, I've got white papers about how we protect the anonymity of respondents. And so you can share that with your organization or whatever you want to do. So one of the ways that we do that is that if you have a team that is 4 people or less, it will suppress your data, okay? It will suppress your information. The reason for that is if you look at the frequency distribution of the percent 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, and 5s in a question, 25% of our team on 4 people gave a question a 1, the manager can conceivably say, oh, I know who that is, you know? And so that's why anything small, 4 or lower, we're gonna suppress. Now that doesn't change your obligation about how you're gonna do engagement, how a team is gonna work on this, or change that you are gonna do an action plan. It just changes how you do it, and I can help you with that. So be able to just look at the list or use the overall organization. The other thing, I've got some organizations that are like, oh, okay, so we gotta have teams more than 4, right? I'm like, no, don't change your org chart. Don't try and manufacture these teams so everybody gets a report, because we know engagement is built at the local level. That's a manager and their direct reports. So I always say to people, if you do someone's performance evaluation, that's your direct report, that's your team. So regardless whether it's 2, 3, 4, don't change that. But we'll talk about the best ways to have that conversation about doing it, because I know you guys are in some very small agencies, and you can use the overall report. I've got a lot of small clients that are using the overall report too. So, and very effective. Okay. So team results they're not about an individual. They're about the team, the environment, you know. Really, it's all about an individual work group, and that's a manager and their direct reports. We know through Gallup that managers are 70% responsible for the engagement level of a team. That's a big number. So at Gallup, we say people join companies and they leave managers. So if you've ever had, you know, the average of 10 jobs, you know, that the industry, they say that everybody's going to have over their lifetime, you got a manager that's like, I'm out of here. You know, I joined this thinking, wow, I'm going to be doing some great work, and your hopes and dreams were crushed by the wrong manager. And so that's why we focus on managers, what managers do, and how they influence individual teams. So that's what we do. Okay. Just a couple other things. You'll receive your agency's results. So everybody's going to get your, AMIN is going to do an overall census of everybody that's a member, all the member organizations. Then you will be able to cut that data by your individual agency and then the individual teams. Kelly he's a data guru, so he's already thinking in his head how he's going to assemble his roll of reports and make sure we've got people out there. So, yeah, Jim.
Will you dispel a theory at our company about our results, or maybe you'll support this? Do you notice time of year when companies do these, does it have any effect on the results?
Yeah, so everybody, this is a great question, and it comes up all the time. We can't do it here, it's summer vacation. We can't do it here, it's benefits rollout. We can't do it that time of the year. It's Christmas, it's like 1 week away. We can't do it then. Here's what I have always told clients, I says, I don't care when you do it. It's truly about consistency. So we want to do an annual census, and then we can do pulse surveys throughout the year. And then we're going to take into account, so if we do it in the middle of vacation time, and we go down and we look at our ends, and we only had 70% participation rate, we can say, oh my gosh, you know what, everybody's on vacation, at that time, that's why. But people can take it on any handheld device, and the survey's open for 2 weeks, kind of thing. So sometimes we do need to take that into account. The classic was at Gallup. About a year ago, we rolled out a whole new computer system, and software package. It didn't go real great, and people had a lot of problems and everything. Well, our materials and equipment number went through the floor, and so we, everybody freaked out a little bit, So a client had to go, no, we're not doing the survey there. We just had that rollout. It went terrible. We got to fix everything. And I call that manufacturing a number. You don't want to manufacture a number.
We did ours, I think, in September normally.
Yep.
But the last year, because of the pandemic and all the things, and we had a layoff in August. We waited till December, and our scores were lower, and some people on leadership think it's because you did it in December. I'm like, no, it's because of the RIF and because of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's right.
So I just wanted to know, you don't notice automatically lower scores in 4Q versus summertime.
Yep, there is no science behind the perfect time to do the survey, and that's why I always tell people there is no perfect time to do it. But sometimes we need to look at data points and take things into consideration, and we need to discuss why we think that data point is the way that it is. Same thing with you guys doing market research. You roll out a campaign, a Christmas campaign in July, or whatever it might be. I'm like, gosh, that just wasn't all that well received. Wonder why? Kind of thing. You do your market testing in July, and you're going to roll out a campaign in December. It's like, boy, that doesn't work very good, does it? And it's like we don't flush the campaign. We go, you know what? Gosh, we did our market testing in July. That doesn't seem right, does it? So maybe let's do it again. Whatever you guys might want to do. It's just you just got to talk about it and think about it.
We're giving out our holiday bonus the Tuesday before the plane.
Yeah.
That's great. We give ours the 23rd.
So here's the biggest point, about all this. Higher levels of engagement happen over time. It's not going to happen overnight. It is a continual process. Gallup has been working on this. We do 2 surveys a year. We do it every 6 months. We have increased our engagement score 0.8 over 20 years. Okay? So now, do we have peaks and valleys in there? But our overall number has gone up Now, we started pretty high, you know, I'll grant, because we do talent-based hiring, you know, so I mean, people are in the right seat on the bus when they get to Gallup, you know. But I just want to calm your fears. You guys haven't had these conversations at all, you know, other than Jim has worked on, you know, before. This is going to be new to everybody. You're going to get lots of questions about best friend. Holy fuck, best, what are you talking about? Best friend, you know. Or, you know, in the last 7 days, well, let's see, today's Friday, you know, Thursday, no, Wednesday, no, Tuesday, no, that's a 1 for me, you know. But as, you know, we have these conversations, people understand them, you know, they can take the survey very quickly. They're also, if we integrate it, it's not in addition, that's the other thing, tell your people, this isn't in addition to what you're already doing, it's part of what you're doing. I had a manager one time, I got on the phone with him to coach him, he goes, I don't have time for this, I just don't have time, you know, to do this. And I go, do you ever talk to your employees? Of course, I talk to them all the time. I said, well, what do you say? What are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about what we gotta get done the other day. I know what's expected of me at work. So tell me about that conversation, you know? And then the light bulb started coming, he's like, oh my gosh. He goes, I've been doing this for, I go, you ever give a shout out, a good job to anybody? And he goes, well, yeah, of course, all the time. I go, what does that look like? You know? And he goes, okay, yeah. He goes, oh man, I've been doing this all the time. I didn't even know it. And I go, exactly. I said, you're going to be doing this as part of what you do, not in addition to what you do. Now, I'm going to help you be more intentional about this and be more cognizant about what it is we're talking about, and making sure we're focusing on the right things that then directly affect, rather than just a flag blowing in the wind, you know. Wherever the wind takes us, that's where we're gonna go, you know, or a kite blowing in the wind. You know, we're gonna be intentional about what it is we do in the conversations that we have. And you're gonna be intentional about starting every meeting with one of the Q12 items, or integrating it, you know, or in a one-on-one conversation. Being intentional about one of these things I'm going to talk about in my one-on-one conversation. It'd be important. So be ready for that. When do you have time for that? Well, unless you just come into work, going in your office and shutting the door and never talking to anybody, you know, you're already doing it probably. Okay. So here's just a graph over 3 years that we see traditionally with organizations. You know, when you get that first report, don't freak out. You know, if there's a lot of red on that report, don't go, oh my gosh, we're gonna have to reorganize everything, we gotta blow this place up, we're gonna have to start over. No, it's a starting point. The information points us in a direction, and then we're gonna start to have that conversation. So, but we'll see this over time. You know, we'll have this Zig Ziglar, I saw him one time, he goes, you know what, performance is not this perfect, you know, line upwards. It looks like this. You know, he puts up his graph, you know, of ups and downs, trials and tribulations, but he says, when it's over, this is where we want to be, and that's where you want to be, and that's what it's going to look like sometimes, you know. Now, I will say this, when a pandemic hits, that, and you're highly engaged, that valley's going to be a little lower, or it might be flat, you know. When the computer rollout system doesn't go the way you want it to, you know, that valley's going to be a little flatter, or it's going to be very narrow. You know, it's not going to go low and stay low. You know, because we know what to do. We know what to talk about. We know how to do our interventions and be intentional. And when the great resignation comes along, we're not going to lose anybody, or we're going to lose a lot less people than everybody else. And that's what our goals are. That's what we're trying to achieve. So before I'm going to hook up to Gallup, let's take a break now. So go out and do that. Take about 5 minutes. How does that sound? And then I'm going to log into our Gallup Access platform. I'm going to show you some of the resources that are there. Okay? So let's take about 5 minutes. I don't have a clock.
It is 2:33.
2:33. Can you be back here at 2:38?
Perfect.
Very good.
But I'd rather do this in some way.
I'm good.
Yes, actually, I don't know but it'll be like 5 minutes before I'm finished.
Sorry, Kelly sent you some of that stuff I sent. Okay, I'll
Okay, I mean, that's a good thing.
email. I did call her.